Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again for yet another Film Fanatic show. It is Saturday about 10:08. Hope everyone's doing good. Today is a really nice day. We might be in the clear for a little bit of, or at least in the clear now from all of the rain that we've been getting here in Midcoast Maine. So yeah, I been really excited. I had a really big thing happened to me recently, and I'm going to be doing the uh, the show tomorrow. So I recently just did a review, and I just picked it up for the first time. Actually, just bought it without having seen it, and had heard about this movie for quite a few years. And I had been looking for it for a while, and then a bunch of things happened, and led to this really cool thing that's coming up tomorrow on Sunday. So I recently just bought uh, Black Christmas on Blu-ray, and this movie I had heard about for quite a few years. I had never seen it before. In my travels on the World Wide Web, on YouTube, and various other things, I had been hearing about Black Christmas continually for a few years, and I had heard from all kinds of folks that this movie was kind of the quintessential slasher movie. It came out in 1974. It's a Canadian slasher exploitation movie. As I've said many times, the horror exploitation world is my favorite universe of movies, my favorite genre. I love taking deep dives in things that I fall in love with, and the exploitation world is one of those. As far as movies go, it's the biggest kind of rabbit hole that I've gone down. I have always had a love for those films, all of the foreign exploitation movies that have come out in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, the Giallo films, all the great Italian films. And but I always go back to my favorite genre being the slasher genre. And I go back and forth obviously between revisiting a lot of movies that I grew up watching in that genre as a kid. Classic films like Tourist Trap, The Obvious Texas Chainsaw Massacre, House by the Cemetery, The New York Ripper. So many great films. And I've been buying those, but in that situation, I have been exposed to all these other films and other directors that I was kind of familiar with or was not familiar at all with. For the most part, a lot of films I had never seen before, and also a lot of directors I wasn't really aware of. So it's opened up a whole nother world for me as far as the the exploration of exploitation, if you will. Jess Franco is a discovery of mine. Again, a director who I was aware of, but wasn't really. I was aware of, but then also not aware of. I had seen a handful of his movies when I was a kid, back in the days of VHS. One, most notably, probably Facelift, which starred Telly Savalas, the famous American character actor who his most famous show was Kojak, but he was a character actor. That was a movie I used to always see as a kid. Incredible movie. And there was a couple other films by Jess Franco that I had seen, but I seeing being that I've been doing trying to dive deep into the whole world, I've discovered a plethora, almost hundreds of films that I never knew existed. So it's been an amazing journey as far as being a film fanatic. And my favorite genre has always been the slasher genre. So I had heard, like I said, about Black Christmas for a while, and I had never seen it for various reasons. You know, because there's so much content out there. There's so many. You know, you could pick any kind of genre, and a lot of the time, most of the time that I find when you discover a genre of filmmaking, or even with music, or it could be anything, there's usually, you know, you have your dozen or so titles in those respective genres that are pretty well known. But then if you really gravitate towards that particular genre, you start seeing, oh wait, there's all these other things tied in under the surface to the genre, and things that were maybe, you know, completely overlooked or underrated, or even more low budget. So that's how it's been for me, and it's been awesome. And I finally tracked down the other week. Last week I was in Bull Moose, my favorite shop on planet Earth, my home away from home. The first movie I saw was Black Christmas, and I was just like, yes, I was super excited, so I bought it. Really great price, amazing package. It was used too, which was really cool. A lot of the movies I buy there are, they sell a ton of used products at Bull Moose. You know, music, books, what have you, graphic novels, and especially movies. But they also sell a lot of new things, and things that have never been opened. And for whatever reason, a lot of the time I end up buying a lot of films that have not really been opened. And the prices are, even for films that have not been used, that are not used, prices are pretty fantastic. And then when you buy something, obviously that's been used, it's even, the price is even knocked down even more. And I've really lucked out with buying a lot of used movies, but mostly a lot of newer releases that are still sealed. And even on the films that I've bought that have been used, they've all been in mint condition. I've never had any problems with scratches, or never had an issue where I had to bring it back because of something was wrong with the disc. Always lucked out with having a really good quality Blu-rays. So Bull Moose really has, I think, aside from just being a great shop and having, you know, just having an awesome selection of different things, they have a really good thing about quality control there. Whenever you check out something that you buy, they always look over at it to make sure it's clean. They actually have a little cleaner disc that, or a cleaning machine that they'll run if you buy a used movie or a used CD or what have you. They'll actually look at it, you know, in the shop for you, and if it has any kind of markings like fingerprints or dust, they'll scan it through the machine that they have there, and it cleans it right up. So really, really great. They provide a great service, but they great customer service. They have a very cool customer service relationship with their customers, and good, really good quality control. I've bought lots of things over at Goodwill, and with movies I've had pretty good luck with, but with CDs and a few other things, a lot of the times the quality isn't really good, and the things are scratched and kind of a wreck. But Bull Moose does an exceptional job with their quality control. So I bought Black Christmas. I watched it the other night. Completely was blown away by how amazing this film is, or was. And I kicked myself for never seeing it, for have never have seen never I'd never seen the film before. It was my first time, and it's packed with. It comes with two discs. It comes with a bonus disc that has hours, literally 5 hours of special features. And I was watching a documentary with the cast, and some of the actresses were being interviewed. And one of the actresses in particular was talking about how she does all these conventions, and she's made all these connections through Facebook. That's where she's networked, and she's gone on to do all these conventions, and Black Christmas is regarded as kind of the I had heard about all of the hype around the film, but it's basically regarded as kind of the quintessential slasher movie. It was a movie that really became this high watermark where it was like the blueprint for what the American slasher film would be, and also the European slasher film would be. Obviously, there are films before that that came out that were definitely slasher movies, but I think with the genre, everything kind of came into its own. At least from what I've seen, I've only seen it once, but I my initial reaction was I feel like the genre itself really came into its own, and I think Black Christmas provided that model of where this is how you make a classic slasher film with all the great characteristics, all the great tropes that that involves, the atmosphere, the great kills. Pretty straightforward story, but it delivers as far as the kills and the atmosphere, and with some pretty awesome acting. It actually has an incredible cast, but it also has a very gritty, dark, kind of sleazy vibe to it also, which is also those are also very big characteristics of what make a slasher movie a slasher movie. So I really, I think it's, if you're a fan of slasher films and horror movies in general, but particularly around slasher films, it's kind of kind of like a holy book. It's an essential text or an essential movie that if you're a fan of those genres or genre that you need to have. I think it's essential. I definitely feel that without Black Christmas, the horror genre would be very different. I think it would still exist. It did exist to a degree before that movie came out, but 74, so it predates quite a few movies. And again, I feel like all those elements kind of came together in that movie. So, very important movie and just an amazing movie. So, I was watching the special features and I saw this interview with this one actress, and I was like, hey, won't I'll just on a whim, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna send her a friend request and see what happens. And lo and behold, she got right back to me. And I was like, hey, I was blown away by this film, and I have this little movie channel. I was wondering if there's any possibility if you might want to come on to my show and be interviewed about your experiences around this film. And her name is Lynn Griffin. She's one of the lead actresses. And within a few minutes, she's like, "Yep." She got back to me, and we're going to be doing a interview tomorrow on Sunday, and we're going to talk all about Black Christmas. And I'm super excited, super stoked. So I look at it as getting a major guest on this show for the first time in a major major film. So obviously it's not like a super big budget Hollywood film, but who cares? I feel like in the exploitation slasher film world, one of the most important movies ever made. So super excited. So we'll see how things go. On the technical side, for me, I am, to be quite honest, I'm kind of slow to learning technology. I'm kind of an idiot sometimes, so I I love doing interview segments. That's my favorite thing to do for this channel. It's been a while since I've done an interview segment for this YouTube channel. It's been quite a few months, but I've done quite a few. I really love doing those shows. I love the format. I love the give and take, and trying to bring people in that have worked in different facets in the film industry and in the horror industry. And the videos I've done, I'm pretty proud of, and they're a lot of fun. I learn a lot, and I learn a lot from just generally how you the just around the interview format itself. But then just being a fan of film, I also learn a tremendous amount because I get these different insights and a different perspective. So very very cool. So I'm hoping things work out. Knock on wood, and I'm hoping that this will be what I try to a lot what I envision. And again, it's a lot of things are easier said than done, obviously. But what what I envision and what I've kind of always wanted this channel to evolve to is along with these regular videos that I do where I do the reviews of movies that I love, and then also these specialty shows of where I'll go and focus on a very particular subject that is related to films but is not directly a review. I'll still do those videos and I'll still do those segments because that's what makes up about 99% of this channel, and that's my love first and foremost. But my favorite thing to do is the interview segments. And what I envision and what I hope will happen with through this is that I can start having more videos on the channel through doing the interview segments where I can have high profile actors and people in the industry on the show, because that's really I feel like that could be a way that I can raise the bar and raise the status of this channel and move it into the next phase of where that's what I'd like to do. I would love to get, eventually I would love to get the directors that I love for a lot of these films. I would love to have them as guests, and also other actors and other people that are in the films that I love to have them on the show. So I'm trying to get to a point of where I can have this show elevated by that format. So stay tuned. We'll see how things go. The one thing I'm excited about with this show is I feel like this is the first step to where that's a possibility, and then I can open up. It will open up maybe some other doors and opportunities to where now I can really bring this channel and what I do to this new and higher and new and higher and more of an exciting phase. So stay tuned for that. And then also today we're going to be doing a quantum show on WRFR. We're going to be doing a show at 3 o'clock today, and I'm very excited about that. We're going to be doing a show. There's a local radio station, WRFR, which is a really great local radio station that has an incredible eclectic mix of DJs and shows. And we're going to be doing a live performance and maybe a little bit of an interview segment at 3 o'clock on WRFR in Rockland. And we might debut some new material. We've been working as Quantum. We've been working a lot on new material, and we have these other gigs coming up. So we've been getting ready for that. So yeah, very much looking forward to it. And as Quantum, the band itself, we have a pretty deep connection to local radio. That's really how the band first started. Was technically my first gig, or if you want to call it that, a performance was on the radio. And we've done quite a few shows on the radio. We did about 4 or 5, I think, on the radio when we first started, or within the first couple of years that we were a band. We did a series of shows on WERU, but that was, a really important period for us as a band to, I look at everything as being a test run, but for us, especially then, it was really a thing to see if we could do it, or if I could do it. and make it a live thing or a real band per se. So that was a real stepping stone and a real thing that we needed to do to be able to make this make this thing happen. So yeah, we'll see how things go, and if you get a chance, stay tuned. And it's going to be on my friend Spencer Roulard's show. He has a really great electronic show at 3 o'clock on Saturdays, and he does this modular electronic synth stuff, which is really cool. We've played some shows together. He does the way his format usually is on the show is he'll play other people's tracks and play albums, but he'll also do a live set of his own material. So this will be exciting. So stay tuned for that. So today's show is on this amazing film I just discovered. Well, I've had this movie for probably about at least a year, and that is called The Borrower. This movie is by just a fantastic director, John Mcnaughton. Just he's such a great. I look at him as being such a great indie director, but in particularly I look at him as being kind of a maverick in a lot of ways. He directed probably my favorite movie about a serial killer, and that is Henry. That film came out in the '80s. Super low budget, super dark. A movie that is generally hard to watch, super unnerving, and it's a movie about the notorious serial killer Henry Lee Lucas. And the film is really hard to watch because it's particularly centered around the idea of which I think is one of the most primal fears that we have as people, and that is the idea of home invasion. There's a sequence in that film that is blood curdling and is generally hard to watch. The whole film feels like it's a documentary, and I look at that as being just one of the greatest or the greatest portrayal of a film that is about the perspective of a psychopath and a serial killer, and it's pretty much based on true life events. And I look at that as just being one of the greatest or the greatest in that kind of genre. And it's a super low budget kind of exploitation, down and dirty, generally disturbing journey. And John McNaughton is just an amazing figure. He's made a whole bunch of really cool movies. A movie that I discovered that he also did is this film here, The Borrower. And this movie is also just so incredible. I bought this about a year ago. I had never seen this film before. And this came out in 1991. It's so bonkers crazy. It's a sci-fi slasher movie. It's the only way I can really it's the only way I can describe it. The effects in it, the practical effects in this movie are just amazing. It's completely mind blowing how bonkers this movie is. It's definitely fits right in the category of sci-fi horror exploitation. Super low budget, and the practical effects are just unbelievable. An alien. The basic premise of the story. It's generally hard to explain, I think, to a degree. An alien is banished from his planet and is sentenced to live on Earth in human form. There's one problem with his disguise, though. Every so often, the human head explodes, revealing his true identity. This leaves the alien with no choice but to intermittently pop off the heads of other people. It's completely insane, and that's exactly what you see and get with this film. Again, it's so incredibly low budget, and it's so utterly ridiculous. It's really funny and campy, but it's really dark. It's and it's I think that this film is a such a great example of these like really low grade films and incredible actors and directors in the exploitation world. It's such a great example of what they're able to do with no budget, virtually no budget, compared to anything else. And it's staggering. It's staggering. It's got some of the best practical effects that I've ever seen. I mean, there's exploding heads. It's super gory, and it's kind of like a black comedy. Also, it's the cast is great. The story itself is like so utterly bonkers, crazy, and so utterly original. Like I've never really seen a movie quite like this before, especially where it blends those kinds of genres together. Ray Down Chong is in this. Also, she was a real famous actress in the 80s and 90s, kind of an iconic actress. Tom Towles is the lead in this, and he was also in Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. Don Gordon is also in this. Neil Gudolani and Madeline Amick and Antonio Fargas. And this Blu-ray edition is pretty fantastic. It doesn't, unfortunately, it doesn't have much in the way of special features, unfortunately. But this movie, I got this really cheap. It was used. I got this used, and I love John Mcnaughton. He's actually kind of one of my favorite kind of indie exploitation directors. And so I jumped at the chance of buying this. I got this really cheap at Bull Moose. So good, so damn good. And John McNaughton was it just has an amazing background. He was out of the Chicago area. He worked in theater. His first film that he did was Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer. He's gone on to do lots of really cool movies. Things that were definitely movies that are definitely kind of out of the low budget exploitation world. But Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer came out in '86. That was his debut. He's also done, like I said, he's done some bigger budget Hollywood films. One most notably, which I think is just an amazing movie, Wild Things, with Nev Campbell. Super awesome movie. Matt Dillon. A really creepy kind of film noir movie with just an incredible atmosphere. It's a murder mystery, and that came out in 1998. That's one of his more. He hasn't directed any films in quite a while, but in a few years. But that's an incredible movie, Wild Things. And I think the thing that's so interesting about him as a director is his ability when you see like Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer or you see The Borrower and then you see something like Wild Things, which is like kind of a major Hollywood film. You still see his style on the screen, regardless of whether he has virtually no budget or a really big budget, and you still see his style on the screen. And his films always have a really great atmosphere to them. He also did Mad Dog and Glory, 1993, another great movie. I haven't seen that in a very long time. The Harvest in 2013, a movie he also did in 2001 called Speaking of Sex. The Borrowers, of course. Normal Life in 1996, which is actually a really cool movie also. A real diverse catalog of films that he's done. Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll in 1991. Firehouse in 97. The King of Counterfeit. And John McNaughton, like I said, he started his career as he was working on doing commercial work, like working for making documentaries. He also, well, he went from like making like TV commercials for like local cable shows, and then he got into making documentaries and produced all of these films, these short little documentaries and little short films, and then eventually he got the backing to make its first full length feature, and that was Henry, and that kind of launched his career. That movie was highly acclaimed and really put him on the map as a director. And since then, he has, he went on to make all of these other kinds of films. But again, like I said, he's one of those unique directors that, he came out of the kind of the murky independent filmmaking makers world of exploitation, but then he can make that transition to make these big budget Hollywood films, and all his films have that same style that he always would bring to the table. Just a tremendous movie, and the transfer of this film is just awesome. Um, yeah, I this was such a cool discovery. I never hear this movie ever talked about. He's most well known for Henry, rightfully so. And again, like I said, that is my favorite film in the, if you want to call it, the serial killer genre. But this is an awesome movie, and I love how just incredibly different it is. It's a totally gonzo sci-fi slasher film. Definitely one of the most original movies I've ever seen, as far as the kind of it almost has like this high concept kind of thing behind it. And again, it's always mind blowing on how there was virtually no budget for this film, and just how much imagination was brought to the screen and brought to the story, and just brought to the overall production of this film. It's one of the greats, and I never hear about this movie really talked about. I had seen it brought, the way I heard about this film. There's a YouTube guy that I've talked a lot about, Mood616, who really, he's my favorite guy on YouTube, and he covers all kinds of films, but mainly his focus is on like the exploitation world. And he does these big hauls of where he'll buy tons of movies, and he'll go through each title. And some of the shows are pretty long, like 2 hours each, and he'll go through all these titles. And I remember this was one of the movies he brought up, and I never heard about it. And I got into a pretty strong habit watching that show, where I made lists of certain films and certain directors that I had seen before, and people that I never saw before, or if like it was related to a certain style that I like, I made notes. And I've learned a lot about the whole exploitation world through that channel, and I've gotten turned on to so many cool movies. And it's brought me back to so many great low budget exploitation movies I saw as a kid. And but mainly it's been just a great source of knowledge. But I've also just been exposed to so many cool movies, and this was one of them. And I remember writing a note, because I was like, oh, John Mcnaughton, yeah, he directed Henry, which is such an amazing movie. And I did a review on Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, last year. I have that on Blu-ray also, and that's just such a damn good movie. So when I saw that he made all these other films, I I was like, wow. And then like Wild Things and a few of his other movies, I didn't realize it was John Mcnaughton, the same director, and how he's, you know, been became a really prolific director. Bouncing between different genres and styles, and working with all of these different budgets, but still making really great quality movies, and just having such a diverse track record as a filmmaker. So yeah, super cool. I definitely recommend checking this movie out if you're a sci-fi horror slasher fan. This is a great blending of styles, and it's also very funny. It's super silly and goofy and campy, so it's got a cool, a cool balance of all of those things. So cool, a really fun movie. So this is Jason Dean. thanks again for your support. If you like this channel, please subscribe to the channel and keep the comments coming. A lot of folks have been commenting on these videos the last few months, and I really appreciate it. So thanks again, and we will see you next time. Peace.